Simplified, tech talk everyone can understand. I'm your host, Will Slappy, and today I'm joined by Scott Curtis, who serves as our chief. Oh, hello, Scott, who serves as our virtual chief information officer here at IT Voice. Scott is deeply passionate about client success and leveraging technology to help them achieve their goals. As a VCIO, he helps business owners decide what is necessary for their business. Maybe you'd like the opportunity to chat with a VCIO. And so I thought we'd do something a little bit different today in our episode. Instead of having the usual questions and answers, I thought we would do some role playing today so that you, as a listener, could get kind of an inside peek behind the scenes of what it might be like in a conversation between a business owner and a VCIO. So, wonder no more. Instead of being the CEO of IT Voice as I normally am, I am going to play. What was the name that Scott you wanted to give me?
Art Vandelay.
Art Vandelay, and a CEO for a local architectural firm. And that's the role I will play here today. And then Scott will play his normal role as a VCIO and kind of walk me through a conversation that he would have as if I was a CEO for an architectural firm. And is that way you guys can kind of get the inside scoop? As a disclaimer for everybody to know, I am going to put my knowledge as an IT professional to the side and pretend to be a layman. So nobody quote me or give any snippets as if I don't know some of the things that I really do know. But hopefully this will give an insight to you guys about what one of these conversations may have. So Scott, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you here to jump in on the conversation and let our listeners in for a short snippet of behind the scenes.
All right. Great. Well, I appreciate you meeting with me. What we're going to be talking about today is data protection, disaster recovery, and business continuity. And what I've done is a little bit of research before I came in. I found out that your architects have a file server on premises for your architects.
Yeah,
Put
our X drive.
yeah, the H drive. Yeah, and so that's within your four walls. You've also got a couple cloud applications. One of them's for accounting, and the other one's your CRM that you use for your salespeople. And you're also an Office 365 user, so all your email comes through there, and you're using OneDrive and all that. So what you've got is kind of what we call a hybrid environment. And a lot of the things that I like to make sure we do when we put together a plan for you is to make sure we're covering all the bases. So one of the things I like to talk about, and this is what I've been asking clients for years, if we take your file server, if I take your H drive and I put it in my trunk and drive away, do you know what happens?
Um, well, one, I'd be pissed at you, Scott. Um, and two, nobody at the company would be able to work or function. I do know that had some conversations internally, and those files are huge, right?
Mhm.
And so people shouting down the hall, hey, can you hop out of project such and such? I need to hop into that one, depending on the nature of what the file is. But there's some big files, and so we feel like we had to have them here on a local server to be able to access. And I mean that's our bread and butter, right? I mean, like, we're from those, we're in those files each and every day, doing the design work that we need to do, for our customers. And we're looking up old files from old information. I mean, that's where the work is done these days. Back in the day when I started the firm, we used to do it all with pencils and rulers, and now it's all all on the computer, and all that drawing is done there. So those are essential to our day to day.
Yeah, yeah. Back in the old days, not having enough pencils was the biggest problem. Yeah, with that in mind, so thinking about your architects and the amount of data that they change every day. So they're building buildings, they're building houses, and putting together a lot of data. And from what I understand, you've got 12 of them working pretty much all day. What I like to talk about is the cost and the risk of losing data in the terms of hours. So what I like to do is say, okay, all your architects are working, and all of a sudden they lose an hour of their work, an hour of their time. What kind of an impact would you think that has on your company?
Yeah, is- that's would be pretty significant. Our kind of effectual hourly um revenue, if you will, is kind of ranges anywhere between 150 to $200 an hour, depending on which projects we're doing and kind of how busy we are. And there's different seasons that come and go, the economy and everything else. So, if there's four of the principal architects that we have, and then we got eight other associates that are in our firm as well. So, I mean that now you got people who may be off on vacation or those kinds of things. So and maybe somebody that's not working on a particular project or just out for that particular day. So, but I don't know. I mean, you could probably say let's just say an average of like 10 people are probably actively working for most parts of a day. So, you know, an hour could be 1,500 to $2,000 an hour that we're going to potentially lose in terms of what that productivity would have normally gained us.
Okay. And then the way I like to turn this around, I like to use an investment term, risk tolerance. And the way I like to talk about this is you don't know if you're going to have a problem. You don't know if your server is going to get zapped and your H drive is unavailable. You don't know if you're going to get ransomware. It could happen, but what are the chances? It could be
Well, I
20%.
can tell you, 2 years ago, the H drive, thank God it was on a Friday, but the H drive like went down at like Friday
Uh,
at like 10 a.m., and we called our IT company, which part of the reason why we had you here today to talk to you about it, but we called our IT company and they got it back working, by like Sunday afternoon.
uh,
And I was just glad it was a Friday, and we kind of hung out till like noon, and then when we realized that this was not gonna get fixed real quickly, we just went ahead and sent everybody home for the day.
mhm,
And then thankfully everybody was able to, I came back in that Sunday afternoon after I came back home to just make sure it was working and kind of get caught up on some stuff. And everybody came back Monday. So,
mhm.
we lost 3/4 of that day on Friday. And thank God it was a Friday, because if that had been like a Monday, we would have potentially lost, 3 days worth of work. So, that was a pretty bad incident.
So you've got firsthand experience at this. What did that do? I mean, where did you end up as far as did you miss deadlines? Did you was any were you did you have to pay overtime to get caught up and stuff like that? What happened?
Yeah, so thankfully we didn't miss any deadlines. The following Friday we had some deadlines. And so I was also thankful that it didn't happen on that Friday, or otherwise I would have had some really upset clients. So everybody was off on that Friday, and then yeah, that following week everybody basically had to do 6 days of work
Mhm.
to catch up. And actually, when I think about it, I think that we even lost some of the work we had done that morning as well. And so, I think even though we got that work in, and we pretty much lost the whole day. So yeah, we pretty much had to do like 6 days of work. Now the partners, of course, we didn't get overtime or whatnot, but some of the associates and others, had some overtime. But honestly speaking, Scott, I think in that particular situation, the the call certainly had an impact to our business, but I think that the when I look back on it, I don't remember that as much. What I really remember is the, I'll just say, emotional turmoil that weekend of like, I wasn't that worried like midday Friday, okay, they're going to get it fixed. But then when we got to the end of the day Friday and it still was not fixed, and then I was like, it's kind of doomsday scenario like, are they ever going to get it working? When are they going to get it working? And what if, we got the deadline that was coming up that following Friday? And I mean, that weekend was like, a complete disaster for me personally, just because it's like just completely preoccupied. Was watching some sporting events, but couldn't even enjoy any of it because I'm just like completely, preoccupied. With all of that, and the other partners were the same, and our employees, there was like, I think some of them were worried for their jobs, and again, thankfully, the total impact was about a day lost, but it caused us all to consider what could have been the impact. And if we were out for multiple days or a week or whatever, and it's just, that that was really what kind of seared in my brain even more than, the thousands of dollars that we lost from that one day.
Hmm. And it's that nagging feeling of what if it's all gone? Not just when are we going to be able to access it? What if it's all gone? And
Well, and that was the worst thing that I had to deal with, and I don't think some of the other partners. I overheard the tech guys talking about it, and there
uh,
was kind of like that there seemed to be that worry, and that, when the doctors start talking hushed with each other and you're like, "Oh crap," Um and so it was the same sort of thing where I was just like, yeah, when I had that sinking feeling, it's bad enough if you're out for a day. Like that has a huge impact. But when you start thinking about, like, if we had lost everything on the H drive, I, I don't think we could recover. Like I think that would just or the pain to recover would be just massive. I mean, it would just, that would just probably have obliterated us.
right. So with that in mind, do you have an idea of how much data in hours you think you can lose without it being so painful that you are just bleeding money?
Um, like if we lost the whole H drive,
Well,
how many?
I'm thinking about the hours that everybody's working because, even a basic backup right now, the most you're really going to lose is 8 hours if everyth's set up
Oh,
properly. So you
right.
lose a day.
Right.
Right.
And
So
that really is not, I mean, a day of, again, if we kind of just say like pick like 175, basically 12 of us. Well, let's go down the let's go down to 10 because there's not everybody's always working every day, like I mentioned, before. And, there's probably, let's not everybody's wearing like full 8 hours, right? So let's just say like 6 hours, 7 hours of productivity, so you're probably like $10,000 or something like that, in a day. So, not a storm, that can't be weathered. The other thing that when you were talking about, when I misunderstood your question, that had me even more worried, because I thought you were asking like how many hours would it take to rebuild everything that we have on the H drive,
uh-huh.
which I mean, would who knows? Like at this point in our 25-year firm, I mean that would be like thousands of hours, right? To rebuild all of those things. I mean, even because we have projects that go on for sometimes like 2 years, right?
Right.
So if you just say like an architect, our average architect builds, let's just say 1,200 to 1,500 hours, per year, then that's like a year. I mean, that's a ton of hours for just one. Once you multiply that times 12 of us, that's a ton of hours. But my mind actually jumped first to when you asked that, like the reputation. Our
Yeah.
clients trust us, and like we've been working on this, and if that like if we were to all of a sudden lose that file we've been working on, like they're taking out loans, they've, you know, signed leases, or, bought properties, or, just all sorts of obligations and things that they have on their end. And, that would be a huge weight of the impact that not only would it be for our firm, but the impact that it could have on, a lot of those, I mean, a lot of our clients are my friends, right? And that would be a real personal, sort of impact.
Yeah, and that's really what we get into next. So, and just to summarize what we've been talking about, losing an hour is not the end of the world for you. If you
Yeah,
were
so
to
let's just
lose,
say it's like 2,000, and that's what's kind of like $2,000 an hour for our particular firm.
yeah,
Maybe $10,000 for a day if we were completely, unoperable.
but losing a week's worth of data would probably start getting to the edge of being pretty bad.
Yeah, well, and like a day doesn't have as big of an impact just because like you can work like you can easily make up a day like we did that one time, right? You can fit 6 days into a 5 day work week, right? Work an extra 2 hours a day and now you're back to par.
Right.
That's doable,
Mhm.
but trying to now work 2 weeks in a week, and then when you start compiling deadlines and client expectations and all of that, yeah, a week would be difficult, as well, to do. And you also have to keep in mind too, like Scott, it's not just our work, right? So we are meeting with clients, and sometimes we'll meet with clients and make changes live with them when they're meeting with us in our office. And so I can't just stay up late to recreate that. Now, some of it I could remember, those meetings, but sometimes it's like, you're gonna forget, oh, we moved that closet over 6 inches, So
Mm.
then it's like, you gotta potentially had those conversations with those clients again to go back,
Right.
through that, which is obviously a pain for them.
Right.
Sometimes it takes us 2 or 3 weeks to get those scheduled on the calendar.
Right. Right. And my apologies for raising your blood pressure with this conversation because it seems like it always happens, but you got to have these conversations so you know where you stand. So the next
Now,
thing
you and my estate planning attorney, like y'all both always get my blood pressure up,
The other thing I like to talk about is, what if the H drive is unavailable for a period of time? You've experienced this where you lost it for most of a day. What if it's not available for a couple days or a week and the folks can't get to their files? When does that start getting to the point where you're thinking, man, I wish I had a different system in place?
You know, about 2 hours in, it starts to you start to feel that pressure, Um, but the first day is kinda like bearable. Now and I, to some extent, Scott, I'm not completely sure I can answer your question because I've only ever experienced it for that one day and then into the weekend.
Mhm.
But I felt like, if at least for us in our firm, we were starting to kinda get to the edge there of where that felt like the limit was, you
Mhm.
know? I was thinking on that Sunday before I got the call that everything was restored. I was thinking like we've got to do something. Like, I mean, I was thinking like, if we were getting into Monday, I was beginning to get in frantic sort of freak out mode.
Yeah.
Um, I think part of the other problem too is, again, going back to it, if you definitively, Scott, told me you're going to be down for a week, I could probably manage that inside of our company.
Mhm.
But the problem is that, like, in this whole process we went through, there was no definitiveness, right? It was like, hey, we're working on it, we're making progress. Oh, we lost progress. We're making, like, there was a lot of back and forth. And so it became like, I mean, I couldn't even tell like our staff, I'm messaging our staff like, hey, should we come in tomorrow or not? Like, I couldn't even communicate with them and
Right.
in terms of what to do. And so, the longer it goes on, the more people become paranoid and the worse that it gets. So I honestly don't know that I can really imagine going a whole week. And definitely not any farther from that until you would just, and then clients calling for updates and not being able to, again, clients won't, everybody wants certainty, right? Client, like, if a
Right.
client called and said, hey, we're down today, we'll be out tomorrow, we'll make your deadline by Friday, they'd be cool. But
Mhm.
if you don't know that, then you just like, we have no earthly idea. And that's not the answer that anybody wants to hear. So I guess in a way, I think the uncertainty of it is probably as bad as even the time itself, if that
Mhm.
makes any sense. I don't know if I'm saying
Right.
that well.
Right. And really the reason I ask these questions is because there's so many different ways to protect your data now. No, as you can tell, I'm an older gentleman. I've been around since the tape drive, and then the portable hard drive, and then cloud backups, and things like that, where you were just backing up files, and you would take a tape that somebody had been using for 6 years because they thought it was still good and it still popped out every night, and you couldn't recreate the data because the tape was all gunked up. There's a lot of different variables, and now the variables are, where's my data? So if you have a backup in place or data protection in place, where is it? Do you have an on-site device? Can you point to it? Is that device under warranty? Is there a UPS behind it? Is there a battery backup behind it? Does that device actually take snapshots and then disengage from the server so that if you get ransomware, it doesn't come over with the backup? So there's a lot of different questions that
Right.
come
You're just adding more things for me to worry about, Scott.
yeah, yeah. And
Now,
then
now I have to worry about not only is my backup working, but did my backup get encrypted to where I can use it or not?
right, right, yeah, and then you think about, okay, if it's stored in the cloud, whose cloud is it? So we all know that the cloud now is just somebody else's computer. So you don't go into a magical cloud that just houses data. So whose cloud is it? In Amazon's data centers? Is it in your provider's data centers? Is it somebody's closet in an apartment? I've seen all of them, and it's really something that it's something that people at your level don't want to think about, but you really kind of have to, so that you can point at that and say, okay, that's my on-site backup device, and that's only 2 years old. It's behind a battery backup. I know that everything is what's called air gaps, so that the data that goes over there is not going to take the ransomware with it. It's not everything's going to get encrypted by the ransomware, and in the cloud, I know it is stored in my provider's data center, which is in a secure center that has a security operations center attached to it, and is always watching out for the data that comes out of my business. So those types of things, it depends on who you talk to, but we can, as far as what can be done, is anywhere from the old one per day backup, and put it on a portable hard drive or a device and no cloud, or you could do a snapshot once a day and put it in a cloud, or you can have the on-site and put it in the cloud, or you can have a whole other server stood up that's ready to be fired up in the event that your server fails, so that you would have virtually no downtime. So there's a lot, there's a and once you get into the different
That sounds wonderful, right? Like when you say that, like, hey, have another server just sitting there ready to go.
uh
But doesn't that cost like a bazillion dollars?
it does cost. And going from the one snapshot a day to 10 snapshots a day and having that server ready to go, there is a price difference, and that goes back to your risk tolerance. So based on what that costs, either on a capital expenditure basis or on a monthly basis, based on that, that gives you kind of the tools to decide, okay, I'm going to be in the middle. I'm going to be right here, to where I want to make sure that my data gets snapshotted more than once a day, at least 5 times a day, and the on-site device is warranted, and it is managed by the backup provider, and I know exactly where it's at in the cloud. It's in a good cloud space that has some security behind it. So you're right in the middle, and that if we
That's
put
how, I mean,
that
that, yeah, yeah, 5 times a day, every 2 hours for us, I mean, kind of going back again, like we lose 2 hours. That's not the end of the world. That probably sounds right up my alley.
right, right, and and when we put something like that together, you are in a situation where you know what you got and you know what your risk is, and that's in my experience. People like you in the seat that you're sitting in, that gives you the peace of mind, because when you had that happen before, you just didn't know. You didn't know when it was going to come back, and with these different levels that we can put in, you can get some assurances. Okay, we're gonna get you back up within 24 hours because we have this in place, and that's really the conversations I like to have with you, so that you get your blood pressure up, and then we put together something for you, or you go out and find what you need that fits your risk tolerance.
Yeah. No, that does make a lot of sense. And I'm glad you brought it back around to that certainty, so to speak, right? Of like, hey, this is how long it's going to be to get it back up, and you actually kind of got me thinking a little bit too, because when you're talking about like the cloud and spinning it up in the cloud and all of that, you know, I had a friend of mine that recently had a fire, in his facility. Now, thankfully, it didn't, have as much damage as it could, but it's a manufacturing facility, and um, there was some fuel that the fire was getting close to, and so they were like, it could have been really bad, right? And
Right.
so, thankfully that it wasn't, but it also got me thinking, like, yeah, I mean, you've got something like a fire or whatever, that all of a sudden that could burn all sorts of stuff, you know,
Right.
and then our data being one of the critical components, of that. But even in that case, like, you gotta, um, you don't have an office or whatever to work from. You got to solve all those problems, which are probably fairly easy. I mean, I got enough friends in town that we could run the Best Buy or whatever and get some computers, or call our IT people or whatever to help us out, and find some place to work. But then, like, getting access to your data. So I
Right.
know you and I've already talked about some of the cloud options, on that could give us some of those capabilities as well.
Yeah, the ability to spin up your servers in the cloud, because it's basically an image of your servers that just gets snapshots added to it. And the ability to spin up in the cloud is definitely a possibility. So you could potentially everybody go to McDonald's and get on their Wi-Fi, except for security things. But
Or we
you
would
could,
go to Starbucks,
yeah,
Scott. We're more sophisticated. We're architects over here.
I get you. I get you. But yeah, so keeping those things in mind, hopefully that puts you in a place where you at least know where to go with your on-premise data. Now we got to talk about your cloud applications and your Office 365 data. So there's a couple other things to think about. So Office 365 is completely internet based, and if you have
But
one,
that means, like, it's all backed up, right? I'm good. Like, I move stuff on my computer all the time to my OneDrive to make sure that because it's backed up there, right?
right, it's backed up, and it's backed up on Microsoft servers. So when you think about it, if China finally gets through and hacks all of Microsoft, then all your data is gone, because it's going to get the live server that it's stored on, and it's going to get the backup server that it's stored on too, because they're going to take over. I always recommend having something in place where it grabs your 365 data, both the emails and the OneDrive, and it puts it in a different data center, so that if Microsoft gets compromised, you can grab that data and you're not going to lose it. And so that's one thing to consider when you're thinking
You're gonna
about
have
this.
to talk to my doctor now, Scott. Like, now you just told me my OneDrive's not even safe.
Well, that's the problem. Nothing's 100% safe. You can get to 95, but that 5% is always the deal breaker. But yeah, and then you've got those two cloud applications that you work with. The thing that I always recommend to my clients is that you get from them what their disaster recovery plan is. So where's the data stored? Where do they back it up to? What happens if the server that you're currently using to run your business with, what if it just dies? And they should be able to provide that information pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, that's a good that yeah. No, that's not as critical as our H drive, for us.
Right.
Because that we're not doing the day-to-day application, but the thing I think about, honestly, when you kind of were talking about that was, you know, I guess maybe we need to be better at collections or something like that as architects. I mean, our customers always pay us. They just don't always, like, you know, my accounting manager is always talking about, like, DSO and all those kinds of things, and apparently we suck at DSO. Um, and so sometimes we'll easily have stuff 60 days, whatever, that's outstanding, and we work so close to our clients. I hate to, like, call them, like, hey, pay your bill, whatever. We're really good at designing buildings and things, and so but we'll have a ton of AR, that's sitting out there. My accounting manager is always, like, saying we need to get that down. So it's like, That was when you were talking about that. That was the biggest thing that came to my mind was like, if we were to lose that information, I mean, depending on where we are in a cycle, that could be, you know, million plus dollars that's sitting out there that customers owe us.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell you a story about a city that a small city government, their utility server was compromised, and they were not able to get the data back, so they didn't know how to charge people for their utilities. So, the stuff happens. That was an on-premise server, but cloud disasters
Well, that's
happen.
a good time because we track our time and we invoice our clients monthly. I didn't even think about that part, right? But like we've got what we've already invoiced our clients and that needs to be paid, and then we have the component of all of our time that we're recording as the month goes on. And our
Right,
clients prefer just to get that one monthly invoice. So last day of the month, first day of the month, our accounting manager is sending out all those invoices. But if we were to lose that time that's tracked, that would be another cost that would be
right,
pretty serious for us.
right.
You need to
So
like bring a bottle of Aleve or something with you when you aspirin or something when you come.
yeah, what I like to do is get the blood pressure up, and then I always recommend that you have a conversation with different stakeholders and different departments, and they may uncover things that even you don't know as far as that's concerned. And then I like to have that conversation with you. You have the conversation. I call you in a week, and then we talk about what type of a system that should be put in place, and then you know what you're getting and you know how you're protected. That's the main thing that I want all my clients to have, and hopefully everybody else does too.
Yeah. Well, hey Scott, actually, my good friend Will Slappy is calling me.
Okay.
One of the smartest, good-looking guys that you will
Uh-huh.
ever meet.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, I got to run right now, but I appreciate the conversation, and let's schedule some time next week to talk further about the solution you want to propose for us.
All right, great. This was fun. Thanks, Art.
All right, thanks. Well, hey guys, hope y'all enjoyed that conversation. A little bit of role play there, having some fun, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight of what your conversation might look like with the VCIO and how that conversation is not as technical as some people might think it is. It gets in a little bit of technical details, but really focuses it on what's important from a business perspective to make sure that that technology is aligned there. So as we learned from today, tech can fail. So to ensure business continuity, it's essential to maintain those data backups at a risk level that you can tolerate. If you have any questions or topics that you'd like to hear us cover on future episodes, feel free to reach out to us on social media or through our website. We're always excited to hear from our listeners. Don't forget to subscribe to Technology Simplified wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Have a great week and stay vigilant, everyone.